The game of rugby union has changed. Bigger, faster, stronger rugby players. Running 36 k's an hour, travelling 7.5 k's in the game, 120 sprints. With all that we know about rugby now, it means we have to be better prepared as referees as well. What we're going to take you through today is a basic conditioning warm-up that you can perform before a game. We're going to go through general mobility, a transition stage and skill preparation. The benefits of the warm-up are wide and varied, but there are 4 key parts. Increased muscle temperature, blood vessels dilate, improved range of motion, and mental preparation. By warming up effectively, we're going to be able to keep up with the play, not only physically, but mentally as well. There is definitely a connection between the two. As you begin to warm up, the body is going to increase in temperature. What this is effectively doing is there's more blood moving around the body. With more blood moving around the body, there's more oxygen getting to the muscles. If you don't warm up effectively, you may find a decrease in performance of up to 10%. As you warm up by jogging and moving around the field, it also gives you a chance to warm up mentally. You increase your range of motion as far as the muscles go, but you also increase your awareness of the game mentally to connect with your own game plan, to connect that with your physical pillar and your mental pillar. Mike, so it's game day. When do you rock up to the ground?
Look, you try and get to the ground about an hour before and familiarise yourself with the ground and where you're probably going to be basing yourselves for the day.
Okay, so I know from working with teams, they want to sort of start their warm-up about 40 minutes before the game starts. How does it affect what you do?
Yeah, look, we would obviously try and get in and see the teams and do our front row briefing, our chat with the captain before they then go out onto the field. I mean, that's the ideal. Then we've got that 40 minutes to ourselves.
And that's really important because you've got to prepare mentally and physically like a team. So straight away after you've had that time with the team, what do you do next?
Well, then the beauty of that is getting that briefing out the way nice and early is we've then got that 40 minutes to ourselves. So warm up, pre-match prep and mentally and physically prepare for the game.
Excellent. So Garrett, the game of rugby keeps evolving and changing. The players are bigger, faster and stronger, and it really highlights to us how important it is that our physical conditioning standards also improve. So we're using tools like GPS and heart rate to monitor how we train and how we perform in games. What can you tell us around the differences between club rugby and, say, super rugby?
Club rugby is a lot more jerky movement where you're going from short periods of time at a lower intensity, whereas in super rugby the movement's more continuous across the field. Ball and play time in club rugby is a little bit less than super rugby, for example. And what we're finding is my average speed in a club game is probably a couple of kilometres an hour less than it would be in super rugby.
Great, so we know that the ball's in play in super rugby for around sort of 38 to 40 minutes. And then we know that the distances covered, whilst they sometimes don't vary hugely between club rugby and super rugby, what we do know is the high intensity distance does. Is that something that affects the way that you not only train, but you recover after games?
Any type of rugby can take an effect on your body, and it's what you do in the immediate time after a game that sets you up for training during the week and then the game the following week. So compression, hydration, nutrition are all things that we pay particular attention to and are really important to us.
One really good indicator is heart rate. So what would you know about your average heart rate in a club rugby game opposed to a super rugby, and even the maximum heart rates?
Interestingly enough, the maximum heart rates might be a little bit similar. So my maximum heart rate in a super game and a club game is probably in the high 170s, and that's normally after a period of long continuous play up and down the field. My average heart rate, however, is quite different. In super rugby it would be around 150, 152 beats per minute, and in club rugby it might be around 130, 135. So.
Another way of measuring it is through the number of sprints we might do. And we know that in super rugby, we're going through about 120 sprints. What do you know about the length of those or duration of those? What do they look like?
There's very few, believe it or not, long sprints in a game of rugby. Most of them are between, most of the fast sprints are between 5 and 15 metres. It's your ability to be able to cover that distance quickly and recover significantly enough to make good decisions in key moments of games. Players
make mistakes when they're under fatigue or under pressure, so it'd be, I guess, reasonable to assume that referees do the same.
Our bread and butter is to make good decisions throughout a game of rugby, and obviously the more fatigued you are, that impacts your ability to do so. So how you maximise your training and combine things like memory games and little puzzles and tests while you're under fatigue, the more chance you've got of improving your ability to perform under pressure.
So with about 35, 40 minutes to go, you've spoken to the teams, you've debriefed with your ARs, now it's time to get out in the field. We're going to go through now your 3 phases. The 3 phases are general mobility, transition phase, and sport-specific skills. Okay lads, game day's here. 35, 40 minutes out from the game, the team's going to be out in the field. You've done all your change room management, you've spoken to your ARs, you've spoken to the teams. We're going to go through now a 3-phase warm-up. In total, it lasts about 20 minutes, which gives you plenty of time at the other end of that to go back in the change room and just get all your ducks in a line. The first phase is going through general mobility. It's going to take 5 minutes, just getting us moving, all your active stretching, dynamic lunges, those sorts of things. In between that and the next phase, we're going to take 2.5 minutes out just to chill out, take a look around, get a mouthful of water. The next phase is the transition phase. It also lasts 5 minutes. At that point, we're looking at stretching our legs out a little bit more, largely straight line movements, working on your acceleration and deceleration. 2.5 minutes to take a bit more downtime, take a mouthful of water. Again, good chance for your mental preparation before we finish with our sport-specific phase. That also lasts 5 minutes. The sport-specific phase is all around the little changes of direction, increasing the intensity up to sort of game intensity for 5 minutes before we go back in the change room, leaving us about 10 minutes before the game starts. So the first phase we're going to talk about now and go through some drills is a general preparation stage. Really, jogging is not that good for warming up. The mechanics of jogging and sprinting are vastly different. With jogging, our heel hits the ground, then our toes. When we're sprinting, it's the ball of the foot that's on the ground, and the most powerful part of the foot to press off and decelerate and accelerate is the ball of the foot. So the toe is cocked up in the shoe like a gun ready to fire, and ankling does that for us. By holding your toe up in the shoe and getting onto the ball of the foot, we can bounce on the ground and stimulate those same muscles that are required for acceleration and deceleration. Just like with ankling, we're going to move on to A-skips now, where we're using the ball of the foot to push off. We don't need a lot of space for these drills. 15 or 20 meters is all you need. With A-skips, it's really important to keep your heel close to your knee as you're bringing it up, but also start integrating the arms. The arms will drive the legs. So largely with all our warm-ups in the general phase, it's really important to move away from the static stretches, which is anything you do when you're standing still, to start giving it some movement and action, or the dynamic stretches. So the next one we're doing here is a lunge. The lunge though is not just going to be in the one spot, we're going to do a walking lunge and also have the ability to include our upper body as part of that. The next drill is called high knees and pretty straightforward. We're just trying to make sure now we increase the frequency in which our legs are moving and making sure our arms and legs are moving together. So high knees is a good way of doing that, increasing the frequency, and it's also ultimately going to help us with our stride length as well. So if you have good frequency and good stride length, they're the 2 things that make us faster. The butt kicks are a good way of showing our sprint flexibility. It's not a technique drill by any means. What we're doing now with the butt kicks is really trying to stretch our quads out, but also try and increase that frequency again to have the muscles moving at higher speeds, which is what we require for sprinting. So we're moving into our transition phase. You're about 5 to 7 minutes into your warm-up, which means now it's time to stride out with your legs and getting things moving more in straight lines. Okay, so we're going to work on our acceleration and our decelerations. We're going to do the stride outs from both a rolling situation and from a starting position where we're static and we're not moving at all. By doing them from a rolling situation, we're decreasing the intensity in which we accelerate and decelerate to try and limit the risk of injury. As we start increasing our intensity, we'll do things from a static position which are more explosive. Part of the transition phase is working through our stride outs now. Most of the sprints we see in rugby are between sort of 10 and 15 metres. Most of us take around 35 to 45 metres to reach our maximum speeds. So it's important we accommodate both as part of our warm-up. Those short accelerations, but also the ability for those longer sprints. With the first part of our stride outs, we're going to allow say a 40 or a 50 metre setup. We're going to use 10 metres of that to roll into the sprint, so walking and jogging into the sprint. When you hit the start line, then building up using your gears. Okay, so gear 1 is moving slowly and gear 4 is moving at maximum speed. So maybe go through 3 or 4 of these, where the first time you go 1, 2, 3 through your gears, then we start going 2, 3 and 4. So we have the opportunity to move at low speeds, but then also at high speeds. The same thing happens at the other end. Take your time slowing down for the first couple, use a 10 metre deceleration zone. So you might roll for 10, you might run as you'll stride out for 30 to 40 metres, and then decelerate over 10 metres as well. Okay, so the last part of our transition phase is now moving faster, I guess, or more explosively. So we're going to do our sprints now from a standing position, right? So making sure you're perfectly still before we stride out and move with maximal speed over a short duration. So we're only talking sort of a 3 to 4 second effort max, because again, that's more likely what the efforts are going to be like when you're refereeing a game of rugby. And we're still sticking to our straight lines. When we accelerate, we're starting from 0, building up speed quickly. When we decelerate, we're putting on the brakes quickly now as well. So both working explosively as accelerations and decelerations, stopping and starting very quickly. We're into our last 5 minutes of your warm-up now, and it's a sport-specific stage where they often call it skill preparation. All the way through your warm-up, you're taking in little bits of water, little bits of fluid, really important. About every 10 to 15 minutes, take a mouthful of water. In this last phase though, we're going to try and make sure you move at the same way you are out in the field. All our agility-based movements, stopping and starting, bringing things in that are in a smaller space, just like you can envisage yourself moving around the back of a ruck or a scrum situation. Okay, so you've finished your game, gone really well, back in the change rooms. Now we're looking at our recovery options. First port of call is a lot of you will be taking on an electrolyte drink. During the game, you can take a mixture of electrolytes and water. After the game, finish off your electrolytes first and then get back onto the water. Second thing, in that first 20 minutes after your game, we're also going to take on a cereal bar, a banana, and a chocolate milk. Those three things together will give you ample recovery nutrition. From there, we get into the showers. The hot, cold showers are the best way to go here. Looking at a 3-minute hot shower with a 1-minute cold. Repeating that 3 to 4 times. So we're looking at about 10 to 12 minutes as a recovery shower. Jump out of the showers and get on your recovery garments, these compression garments, to help the recovery process. They're our non-negotiables. Hydration, hydrotherapy in the showers, the good nutrition, and compression. A final option for those that can, looking now at our self-massage. The boys are doing some self-massage there behind us at the moment. We can also look at some static stretching. Static stretching is popular and still acceptable after games. With your static stretching, look at holding those stretches for between 8 and 10 seconds and repeating them 2 to 3 times. Worst case scenario, you've got injured, either in the game or in your preparation and training for the game. As a rule of thumb, if you cannot train for a period of 3 days because of injury or illness, it's time to set up a return to play protocol. I know a lot of referees want to get back on the field as quickly as possible. It's not in the best interest of you or the teams you're managing to jeopardise or risk injury to yourself or further injury and being out of the game for longer than you need to be. We want you in the game for as long as you possibly can be, refereeing lots and lots of games over a long period of time. For that reason, we need to make sure you have a good connection with your coach and your physio the moment you are injured. Let them know and get a plan. We're about to take the lads through a bit of a rugby-specific conditioning session for referees. We know a lot more about the game these days. We know about how far they travel, how many sprints they do in a game. So it's a great opportunity for us to start integrating some of those things we know about the game into a conditioning session. Today, we're looking at speed and agility, as well as a moderate length interval session. Right, lads, keep using the arms. Remember the golden rule, potato chips. We're holding on to potato chips, nice, relaxed, light fingers. The chips go past your hips, up to your lips. Right, when you get to the end now, guys, I want you to look at where I am. You're gonna look up at me. You're gonna run around me, out to the line here, and then back to the start. At me, Mikey, run at me. Avoid me, get around. Same with you, Benny, at me, get around. Right, a good way to increase the intensity of a drill is by adding a bit of competition. So let's see that happen. Right, Mike, when I say go, you're gonna come out, you're gonna run around me, and then run back down the side and try and tag Ben as he's going through the ladder. Okay, going through the ladder today, Ben, just a 2 in, 2 out drill. Go! Here he comes, here he comes. Right, so good example of how a reasonably simple footwork drill with a little bit of fatigue, a little bit of pressure that's involved by someone chasing you, you can make mistakes. Okay, so there's that link again between the mental and the physical. Right, lads, chuck a harness on. Right, the purpose of the harness is to provide an extra resistance for us. It's a sport-specific way of providing their resistance, or a movement-specific way of providing their resistance. The person who's holding on to the athlete wearing the harness is just as important, so getting that position right is crucial. So what we're going to do here is to finish off part of our warm-up. It's just going to go through a gear system. So I'll get one of you to hold the other and I'll hold one athlete as well. And we'll go through 3 gears. So gear 1, jogging on the spot or running on the spot. Gear 2, working at about 3/4 pace. And gear 3, working at full pace, but you're only on the spot again. Nice iron bar through the chest. They're going to lean forward. Okay, so as they lean forward, off you go, Ben, lean forward. On the spot only, on the spot. Gear 1, wind it back. That's it. A bit further forward, Mikey. That's it. Sit down, G. Sit down. That's the one. Gear 2, on the spot still. Drop your hands past your pockets. In gear 3, wind it up on the spot. Eyes up. And relax and change over. Okay, so we've got through our warm-up. We've been very sport-specific in what we've been doing. We're heading into a moving resistance drill now. It's important we complement resistance with unassisted running, so the muscle then gets a chance to fire really quickly all the extra muscles they've recruited, okay, that are very specific to the movements we're talking about with speed and agility. How we're going to do this, you're going to have one person resisting the other on the red cone. You're going to hold them until they get to green. Green is good to go. So red is stop, starting from a stationary position. Green is good to go. You release them at the green. The person who is in front at the green cone, so you're going to release at the green, you're going to come out, you're going to touch the blue cone, then turn around and try and find the trailing runner. So when you release the athlete, your goal is to get out through the yellow cones, okay, and score the try or get to the other end without being tagged. Right, when you're ready, off you go. Release, touch the blue, go Mikey, make your choice, and away he goes. That's the game. Let's have a crack. Right, when you're ready. Good aggressive arms, G, well done, good start. Off you go, Benny. Okay, so as far as the work recovery times goes, it sort of looks after itself in this situation. When you've got 3 athletes alternating, got plenty of time to rest, recover and go again. If I get you just taking a knee, Benny, facing down the field. So G, all I want you to do is when he moves, try and tag him. And the race is only to the try line here, Ben. So from where you are there now, I want you to try and tag him before he gets to the try line. So what we saw there is an indication where the athlete in front had a nice, strong, powerful position to take off. Good forward lean. The athlete behind, their first instinct was to try and throw their hand out. Oh, it could have been age as well. But when you go forward, it's ideally we're moving our hands and our feet together. The moment you try and throw your hands out, hips drop back, you're actually further away than what you started. Okay, so reactive speed is all about getting hands and feet to go in the same direction. Right, let's mix up the resistance drill, starting on the red cone again. For this one here, what we're doing, when you're going to hold them out to the green cone. Green is good to go, you're going to release them. At the green cone, the person in front comes out to the blue cone, touches and gets back across the line. The person who's holding on, you're going to be holding on, let them go, get back over the red and get back out to the green cone. Okay, when you get back to the red cone, want both feet past the red cone before you race forward again. 3/4 pace just to make sure we've got it right. Right, off you go. Release. And back over the line. Okay, so it's a race across the halfway again. So the big work on in this area here is just that speed of the arms. The arms will drive the legs. Okay, so the arms must turn over as rapidly as the legs do. Okay, so get that arm speed going. So the big difference between using something like a parachute to using the harness, the parachutes are more for high speed running, much lighter resistance. You're only looking at about sort of 5-7 kilos of load. They're progressive. So the faster you run, the more load goes inside those chutes. Right, so if you're moving at a very slow speed, you won't notice much resistance. At high speeds, you will. So what we're going to do here, when you get to the end, you're going to drop the chutes off. You're going to return to the start at 3/4 pace, back to that end at 3/4 pace, pick your chute up and walk to the end. So the first sprint is resisted, working at between 75 and 100 for the first one. When you get down there, let go of the chute at the red cone, turn around, 3/4 pace back here, 3/4 pace back there, grab your chute and walk back, and we'll do it all over again. Go. Okay, let go of the chutes. Here's your shuttle now. This is part of the interval. 3/4 pace, pick it up. 3/4. Back to the blue. Turn, 3/4 pace. Right, grab your parachute and you're gonna walk back to the start. This is your recovery. Feet up. Yep. Let's go, last set.
Every time we drop my boys, it's an extra 2.